This is the 18th season of Bass Talk Live. With your host, Matt Pangrath. BTL is brought to you by Lorraine's, Bass Cat Boats, AFCO, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, X-Zone Lures, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, and Pro Guide Batteries.
PTL, coming at you!
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. No live show today. I'm actually currently traveling, practicing at the at the James River. I have the St. Jude Bass Classic on my mind because I wanted to bring that up in the first segment of the show before we get to our guest today. But yes, at the James River, I know that the Elite Series has just concluded on Lake Chickamauga. Next week when I am back in studio, we will have a full rundown breakdown of that tournament, how it went down. But I also want to mention this is also the last week that you can get your t-shirts on basszone.com. There's just a big St. Jude fundraiser banner there with some t-shirts. That is open through the 15th of April, and 100% of the profits of that go to St. Jude. I am fishing with Adam Bartuzek, the Dick Hiley St. Jude Bass Classic, May 6th through 8th on the Mississippi River up in Minnesota, and this is the 24th year for that tournament benefiting St. Jude's. I believe they did over $500,000 for St. Jude's last year, and in total over the 24-year history are up over $5 million for the kids at St. Jude's. Fat Cat Newton comes and MCs that event, and a lot of big-time anglers in Minnesota have fished that over the years. So excited to be in the back of the boat in a couple weeks following the Open on in Mississippi there on Ross Barnett, headed straight up to Minnesota after that. So $20, you can go, just click on that link on basszone.com, get your one-time only offer. The Bass Fishing Saves Lives with the St. Jude and BTL logo t-shirt, and much appreciated for that. Our guest today, I've known this guy for I was trying to think of the first time that I met Jonny Schultz from Fish the Moment, and the first time that I vividly remember it, I knew him before that, but I wasn't sure where I knew him, was in 2007 at the Little Rock, Arkansas Under Armour College Bass National Championship, where there were 36 teams that qualified for the national championship that year, including Chip Porcher and myself, and we ended up fishing out of his grandpa's bay boat in that event and almost won it. I'm not bitter about that at all. They zeroed the weights in that tournament, Johnny, for ESPNU dramatization, and we were on them, and then we didn't catch them on the final day, and if they hadn't zeroed the weights, I 100% believe there would be a national championship paddle from 2007 behind me. Do you remember going to that thing?
I do actually remember practice with Chip on Lake Maumelle the next year when they came back, and I remember you guys in the bay boat, and pretty awesome stuff. Everyone hates those zeroing the weight tournaments midway through the tournaments. I don't know who liked that. I know they did that in FLW back in like the late 90s and 2000s, but a lot of heartbreaks from that one.
All right. Well, this is Jonny Schultz from Fish the Moment, and I wanted to get Johnny on. I try to do a lot more industry insider interviews. I know a lot of you really enjoyed the Pete Robbins interview. It was more of like a discussion or a talk with Pete. We just kind of told stories for like 2 hours, but got a lot of really good feedback from that. The Ken Duke shows. Just a bunch of the kind of behind the scenes things. We also like the tournament winners. You get your Bobby Lanes on and your Cooper Gallants who won the Opens this past week. And but there's something, it's really cool. There's kind of a group of guys, and I've talked about this before. I mentioned this when I talked to like Rick Pierce or Ken Duke on the phone, is that I look down and it's like an hour later. And it goes all over the board, man. It's like from, hey, have you tried this new technique? Did you see this guy's video? What, where are you headed? And I think that there's a lot of anglers that overlook how important, anglers who are really trying to become better anglers. And that's a lot of your fan base, your target demographic, Jonny, overlook the importance of having a really core group of guys that they can bounce ideas off of and really kind of evolve with as anglers. You think that's a fair assessment?
For sure. I think that's one of the appeals of YouTube, honestly, is that you can actually get in the brain of another bass fisherman. That's what I always tried to do when I started my YouTube channel. I wanted to share how I use my electronics, how I read topographical maps, all those different things, because I know a lot of guys just don't have anyone to bounce ideas with or off of. And a lot of times guys that are in local clubs, maybe they want to be a better offshore fisherman, for example, but everyone in their club fishes down the bank with a spinnerbait and a buzzbait. And they're like, how do I go out there in the middle and cast around? And so that's been one of the coolest things about doing YouTube and teaching fishing online, is being able to kind of be that part of someone's inner circle without actually having to know them. So,
all right, the way I want to do this, and I was trying to think of how I wanted to go about today's interview with you, is I want to start right now with the Fish the Moment empire, with the Jonny Schultz Inc. LLC, everything that you have going on, how you're making your living, paying the bills, doing it. And then I want to kind of work backwards from there to the beginnings, because in all honesty, you have probably one of the most interesting stories going in the sport right now. If you go to the Fish the Moment YouTube channel, you have 131,000 YouTube subscribers. And it's really interesting because a lot of those subscribers watch every single video that you have out. You're not one of those channels with, 250,000 and then they have like 2,000 views on it. Your views are like through the roof. You're averaging 20,000 views on this, and it's amazing because you go way in depth on all your videos. So right now, Jonny Schultz, 2022, if you're sitting next to the plane on a plane with a stranger, flying someone, and this lady looks over and goes, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" What are you saying, John?
I guess the way I would put it is I say I teach fishing for a living. That would be the best way to describe it. A lot of guys ask, what do I do to make a living on YouTube? And honestly, a lot of it comes down to teaching people how to fish, both on YouTube, but also through my website, fishthemoment.com, doing seminars, providing playbooks and breakdowns for guys. They can actually buy, documents to take out in the lake with them. We sell lake breakdowns of where to go fishing on the lake, and really just trying to provide as much information as possible. I have sonar settings guides and how to set up your fish finders. And it's kind of interesting because, as you mentioned, I had a kind of a strange path to get to where I am with YouTube, because I'm not a pro. I haven't fished on the Elite Series, haven't done anything like that, fished the Opens even. But I've been able to get a really strong following just by working really hard and putting out as high quality content as I can. I mean, on average, Matt, I put 30 to 40 hours into every single YouTube video that I put out. And it's just the time and effort into it to make sure I get all the right shots, prove what I'm doing, giving proof of like, this is exactly how it works, and here's why, and here's the results. And it's worked really well for me. It's a lot of work, but it's definitely rewarding.
All right, so that's what you're doing now. And the obvious question, like you said, you didn't fish Elise, you didn't do any of this. So how do you end up as a qualified, capable educator in this? And I think the best way to get there is to go back and take kind of a journey from the time. Did Earl Bentz really give you a boat when you were like 8 years old?
So he sponsored me when I was 8. The boat came a little bit later, but yeah, we actually, it was interesting. We both did the Casting Kids, Matt and I, both national champions representing Casting Kids right here. And
what year were you?
2003 and then 2009, I think. I was 2-time.
Oh, you won both age divisions.
Yeah, both.
So you have
the younger and the older.
Two of the trophies. Yeah, in all fairness, I did not discover Casting Kids till I was 12, so I only had 2 years to do it. But okay, well, so how old were you when you won the first one?
I was 8.
Okay, so did that lead to the Triton sponsorship?
Yeah, I don't really know exactly what happened, to be honest. I was 8. I was young, impressionable youth. And all I remember is that I was on stage holding a trophy and a check in the Superdome. This is before Katrina. So this is like the old Superdome. And I just got done casting in front of 15,000 people on the floor of the Superdome. They bring me up on stage. I win with this check. Then I get like whisked away. My parents had no idea where I was. I was taking pictures with Ike and Ellie after we won the tournament. I was then like had Shaw Grigsby was there with me talking to me, and somehow I ended up in the Triton booth with Earl Bentz. And my parents finally found me there. And Earl's like had me in the back of the Triton boat's trailer at the Classic and was fitting me for a jersey. And I was the first kid, if you ever, like back in the day, I was the only kid that was walking around with an actual jersey. And this isn't sublimation. This is like the actual button-up jersey with the big patches all embroidered. And they had me in an extra small, which was still down to like my ankles because I was 8 years old. And I came out of the trailer and my parents are like, "What are you doing back there? What is happening?" They were freaking out. And Earl's like, "Oh no, I want to sponsor your son." And they were like, "What?" And so I don't know exactly what happened. Somehow it all just kind of worked out. And then after that, I was at the Classic every year. Triton brought me back to do the hog tanks with Mercury. I would do seminars, and I don't know. It all just kind of happened. I don't really know exactly what went on, but it just did.
Did you eventually get like to use a Triton when you were old enough to like see over the steering wheel?
I was when I was 16. So that was or 15 actually. I was able to finally get a Triton. So.
All right, so I don't even know where to go from here. So you're 8. You have you're 8. You get you're 8 and you get lost at the Bassmaster Classic after winning $5,000 in front of 15,000 people, and your parents find you in the back of the Triton trailer with Earl Bentz.
That sounds worse than it is, but you know.
So at that point, are you 8 and you're like, I want to do fishing. I mean, for an 8-year-old, did you want to fish? That's all you wanted to do when you were that age?
I mean, like honestly, when I was 7 years old, I was fishing ponds, I was doing stuff, and then like when I was 7, I won the Arkansas or the Wisconsin, not Arkansas. I'm in Arkansas now. I won the Wisconsin Junior State Casting Kids State Championship.
Is that where you're originally from?
Yeah, Wisconsin.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we were up there, and I beat the former national champion, who also was from Wisconsin somehow.
That had to
and
take
I beat him
off.
in state. Yeah, that was not great, but I was able to win that, and I really had never fished at all. I learned how to pitch during the state competition.
How'd you find it? Did you go to like an outdoor show or something, or how did you come across Casting Kids?
It was a DNR, Department of Natural Resource seminar up in Wisconsin. My mom took me there to go look at the tadpoles, and I won the competition. I just did it for fun. Won the competition, then won state, then won national semifinals. And then after that, I'm like, well, I might as well start to learn how to actually fish. And then by the time I was 8, I was able to, actually start fishing and started doing tournaments actually in the youth clubs over in Wisconsin.
Because that was just when youth fishing was. Because I remember, dude, we have very similar stories. We were both really big fish nerds back in the day, I think. And I still am. I won't speak. Yeah, I know you are too. You spent 30 hours of video on catching fish on YouTube. But that's it's interesting. I just did like I said, I had Cooper Galan on recently, and he was talking about how he benefited from FLW Canada and the youth programs and all that. And it's like, it is a direct route. Like, this is a casting contest that then led to fishing tournaments with some guy who was donating his time, which led to full-time careers for both of us. Like, I can't hammer home enough how important like little bitty things that happen a lot young is so impressionable for the future. Like that the Assumption Bass Club with me went, oh yeah, you're 13, we'll get you some embroidered shirts and you can fish in the club even though you're technically not allowed to do it until you're 16. Or that Earl Bentz said, hey, here's this extra small Triton jersey, it got you in the booth there. Like, it's just crazy how little things with kids that you don't ever, stuff like that can turn into careers in an industry. How impressionable that is.
For sure. I mean, I give a lot of credit to a lot of the guys too that donated their time when I was going through youth fishing, the Oshkosh Bass Clubs up in Wisconsin, fishing all the different Madison chain of lakes, like Winneconne, Winnebago, all those places. And these guys would donate their entire weekends to take some stranger's kid out in the boat for 8 hours and watch them try to fish. Like, I can't imagine how frustrating that would be. Especially I've done it now as a person who kind of knows about youth fishing and things like that. And I've taken out high school kids and middle school kids and things like that. But for someone who maybe never grew up in that scenario, having the patience to do that and then being willing to do that. And I give all the credit for, my development as a fisherman to all those guys. And it was just a ton of different guys. They were just normal guys who donated their time in their boat. And I basically got to fish almost every single weekend in some type of tournament through the network of guys there. They would have me come to this tournament or that tournament and let me just jump in the back of the boat and just fish with them. I wouldn't, my parents didn't have really the funds or anything to pay for me to get into tournaments. So they just let me ride in the back of the boat as a co-angler just for free. And that was massive in my development, especially because like no one in my family fished. My dad, my mom, nobody really did like tournament bass fishing. I had an uncle who would take me to the creeks and the ponds and stuff, and that was big to get me into fishing, but nobody who was like a tournament guy or who knew anything about bass fishing really at all.
It scares me now, and I don't want to go down this road. Well, if we end up there, we will. But I've said it before a couple times. It scares me now how, I want to say, quote unquote, professional the high school and youth fishing has gotten the number of boats and the seriousness of the tournaments. And I will say 95% of the boat captains and the teams are in it for the right reasons, but you still hear those guys, calling up Elite Series and BPT pros asking for waypoints for their kids' high school tournaments, fishing 500-600 boats, in a tournament. I get the stuff from high school kids. How do you get sponsors? I want to fish tournaments and I need sponsors. And I'm like, dude, like, you don't need sponsors to go fishing. And I think back to my youth and what you just said. It wasn't it was a tournament scenario, but it was old dudes who threw Texas rigged worms and crankbaits on mono with pistol grips that let a kid jump in the back of their boat, and you learned organically. You didn't learn these tournament systems. You just learned as you went along at a grassroots level, and there was zero pressure, I guess.
Yep.
You're just fishing for the joy of it, and then all of a sudden you kind of developed on your own rate. Do you see some of the issues possibly with how big and how corporatized and how quote unquote professional even the junior and high school level has gotten now?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because obviously, like you said, with us growing up, I got in the back of someone's boat just because that was the only way I could get out to the lake and fish. My parents didn't have a boat. I just got in the back of the boat for someone just to be able to get out in the lake. Mm-hmm. And I learned so much from getting in the boat with other anglers. And I think one of the things that's the biggest challenge, honestly, for youth anglers nowadays is that they've changed the format to have the parents be the boat drivers and you have teams. And I think it's great to have, guys spend time with their kids. It gets them out in the lake. But from a development standpoint as anglers, I think that it's actually hurting them because I remember I probably can count over 100 tournaments that I fished before I was 16 years old.
Wow.
I was in the back of boats with guys almost every weekend. My parents, I owe it all to my parents, my mom, and my dad. They sacrificed to take me to these tournaments, and great clubs would allow me to just to do it for fun. I would never fish for money or anything. I was just fishing, but I was around the tournament stuff. Mm-hmm. So I got in the boat with 100 different guys that taught me 100 different techniques. And I saw offshore fishing, shallow fishing, guys who were throwing frogs over grass mats, guys who were flipping shallow laydowns, guys who were fishing for smallmouth out in the middle of the bays, dragging tubes. And I think that really helped my development. And I think now there's so much emphasis on winning and being great and cashing checks in these tournaments or whatever it is. And I think that a lot of guys are losing sight in the actual development of your skills as an angler. Fishing isn't always about winning or succeeding or being the best. A lot of times it's failing and learning from those failures. And I think that that's the most important part for me, that I was able to fail a ton very early. And I was able to learn from a lot of people's failures. And then over time, I was able to kind of take that knowledge and become better. But if your focus is always, I need to either win or I am not succeeding, that's maybe not the best way to develop as a successful angler. That's at least my opinion.
No, 100%. I mean, there's not a single guy out there who's like won over 30 tournaments in their life. Like you know what I mean? Like you've got all these guys in the Hall of Fame that have won less than 10 times ever.
Yeah.
At the national level, and you think about hundreds and hundreds of tournaments that you fish in, like it's interesting how you have Rick Clunn who's learning every single time he's on the water. He's going to boats. You know, I remember one time I was rooming with Dean Rojas and I was doing media, but then, you know, to split the cost, I was doing stuff with him for Gander, and then I was also doing stuff for Basso, and he came back one time and he's like, dude, like Rick Clunn asked me about a frog. He's like, he just jumped in the boat. And just different, you know, and you see Rick like down at the dock still at 70 years old, learning about a bladed jig from the guys who throw them, learning about the frog, learning about the swim baits, and everyone who does that.
Out, like 2-3 months ago, I was out with Rick on Table Rock teaching him how to use side imaging better. So like I was out on Table Rock because I know Rick really well. So like,
would you? I mean, is that a fair assessment of Rick?
He's trying to continue. He realizes that the advancement in technology and the advancement in information has narrowed the skill gap to the point where the skills of these anglers are very, very similar, and he can't just use his experience and knowledge of the lakes to succeed. He has to also add in to his repertoire how to use live scope, or forward-facing sonar, whatever it is, how to use side imaging. And I was showing him how I could go into the back of one of these shallow creeks where he always cranks laydowns on these shallow flats. And I'm like, here's how you can use side imaging to mark these isolated laydowns and the different root balls and how you can cast on them with the waypoints. And we caught some really good fish doing it. And it's just to make him a little bit more efficient using technology. And he knows obviously better than pretty much anyone how to crank shallow laydowns in the fall and the on the back half of creeks. But using technology to get a little bit more info is better, you know, makes him better. So
and like I said, we're on this circuitous route that started with what you do now, and why Rick Clunn is learning side imaging from you and how you got there, considering you've never fished on a professional level before like that. But I want to put a bow on the high school thing real quick.
Yeah.
I think the junior and the high school and the college thing, we both benefited from those small programs. I'm not in any way saying that that is a negative. It is a positive. I think that there needs to be more funds, more focus on that, more time on the water. It's great. All I'm saying is I think it's almost gotten too big to a point now where there needs to be make sure that there's a focus on the education and the becoming a good angler and building a foundation, not just the sponsorship part, and paring back the number of boats in a tournament to where tournaments are a bonus. It's not the only thing that you're doing.
Yeah,
that's
one thing
that's
I would
basically
say,
all I'm saying.
Like even when I was in high school, I fished the high school. It was fortunate for me. The high school fishing world finals was on Lake Dardanelle, my home lake.
Did you win
4
that
years
too?
in a row. No, I finished 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and 7th, and there was like 150
biggest regret in life?
to 250 boats. Oh, dude, there was I still think about it to this day. The last day of the tournament, it was a 0 weight tournament. They zeroed the weights.
They did that in high school back then too?
Every year, yeah. So I was leading after the 3rd of 4 days 3 times.
What?
And then they zeroed the weights the last day, and I would have won 2 or 3 of them if they didn't zero the weights. And on the last day of this one tournament, the last year, my senior year, I caught 19 pounds, and it was 19 pounds 4 ounces, and I think it was 19 pounds 6 ounces won the tournament. And the guys the day before, they caught 12 pounds, and they caught like 12 pounds the 3 days before. I had like 16 to 18 pounds all 3 days. And so the last day of the tournament, I lose by 2 ounces, and in the bottom of the live well was a 7-inch gizzard shad that weighed about 5 ounces that got spit out from one of the fish. And I had been culling all day, and if I had just culled out one, it was maybe a 1 or 2 ounce difference between fish. If I had culled out one fish versus the other, and
you had them on scale, so you knew how much each one weighed, so you weren't reweighing it. So that fish all of a sudden was 5 ounces light, so you kept like your third or fourth
Yep.
smallest fish and culled out heavier fish. So you actually had heavier
I
weight.
had the heavier fish, but I culled it out because it was in the other live well and it was a good one. So
Oh,
it was,
that's savage.
So that was, and we should have, that was a mistake I learned that I should check to make sure that they're not, because I was on these offshore schools where they were spitting up and they were just feeding on giant gizzards. And so we were hammering them. And yeah, so like that's the thing, but that's completely off topic. The whole point of that was the high school world finals. I would go out and I would find all my fish in those tournaments myself. And it was interesting because I fished 4 years in Lake Dardanelle. And I never caught a fish in the same spot across all 4 years. I found new fish every single year because there was like 200 boats in these tournaments. So all my spots get covered up. And it made me a lot better fisherman because I was finding my own fish. But there were guys in some of those tournaments that hired guides to take them out before. Some guys actually fished with guides in the tournament. The guides actually took the kids out in the tournament.
Interesting.
And then there was locals that were planting brush piles beforehand and just the local sticks helping their kids. And I think that was, obviously it was a great experience for those kids to be able to do well in those tournaments. But I think it was doing a disservice to them versus like myself, where I found all my fish by myself. I figured out all the patterns by myself. I put the time in, the effort. Again, I feel like I was fortunate that I was on my home lake, so I wouldn't have probably been as successful if I wasn't on my home lake. So I'm not going to say my success was, the moral of the story, but I guess it was the fact that even if I had failed, I would have learned more by trying to find those fish myself than getting help from a guide or something like that. And I think that's the challenge with the high school stuff now, is that there's so much incentive to try to win, try to place high, that guys are potentially going to start cutting corners and trying to find the quick fix.
Results driven instead of process driven.
Yep. That's kind of where I'm getting at there.
Okay, so you're spending all this time on the water, you're fishing. At this point, I mean, are you eyeing a professional career?
Yes.
That's 100% your focus?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I had I think 11 sponsors that I was working with Strike King, Triton, Mercury.
Like, were you getting? Is this like 30% off in product, or are you actually like getting paid by some of these sponsors? I mean, I'm not trying.
Yeah, okay. No, I couldn't get paid because obviously I was fishing high school, so that wasn't allowed.
Okay.
But I was getting free product.
Like the NIL was not in place back then for high school.
Exactly. So no payments, but I would like, if you look at some of my videos, you'll see a back wall that's loaded with Strike King baits. Like they would just send me whatever I wanted back in the day and all that stuff, and it was awesome. And so my plan was to go to college for 4 years, do college bass fishing, and then after I graduated college and had my degree, I was going to ask my sponsors to help get some money together, some sponsorship dollars to go fish the Elite Series or go fish the Opens, obviously to qualify for the Elite Series. And that was my plan going into college.
And you went to Arkansas?
University.
Are you
a
basketball fan? Were you pumped when they made a little run this year?
Yeah, I'm just pumped that any Razorback sports are good. I started college my freshman year after an unfortunate motorcycle snafu with the football team. If you guys know them, those who know, they know what's going on. But
is that where your coach had like a student on the back and then wrecked, and then it just got sketchy from there?
Yeah, and then we were really good at football, and then we were really bad. And so the first football game I ever watched, we lost to South Florida State Tech Christian Division III college, and we lost that game, and that was pretty depressing.
Were you there when you had the running backs? Like, didn't you have Felix and you had two running backs for a couple years? Was that before?
Yeah, that
or
was
after
the year after I started. Yeah. And then it went downhill. So, and then it picked up after I graduated. After I got my MBA, it picked up again. So I'm just happy to see Razorbacks doing well. We have a good baseball team too. That was always fun to go watch baseball.
Is that a master's in business?
Yeah, master's in business.
So you have a master's in business. Okay, this is starting to make sense now. So did you fish all 4 years for Arkansas?
No, so I fished my freshman year. I was vice president of the club, and my partner and I won Angler of the Year, which was cool. And then I actually won a college regional championship my freshman year, going into my sophomore year. And I was getting my economics degree, and I started thinking about how I should basically start thinking about my finances and my future if that makes sense. And I started analyzing my budget and all the stuff I was spending on these college tournaments. And I started looking at how much it would cost to be a professional angler and all these different things. And I started realizing that making a living as a professional angler is very challenging if all the pieces don't fall in place perfectly and you don't get all the sponsorship. And I was like, yeah.
This sounds canned, man. Like you were that intuitive to look at this yourself. This isn't like your mom and dad going, "Hey,
my parents
Johnny,
wanted me to do it."
like, "Hey, Johnny, like we're done. We're not giving you any more coin. Like you got to figure this out on yourself." So you've just always been like really approached everything to the utmost level of analyticalness, which isn't even a word.
Yeah, I guess I did it more for fun when I started, because I was, I think I took like an accounting class or something like that. And I was like, okay, I want to look into the finances of it. And when I saw it, and I literally sat down with my parents and I told them that, and I think it kind of like broke my dad's heart a little bit, because he was like, wait, you're not going to go fish professionally? Like they were all in. And I told him, I think I want to focus on business and go a different route. And so I basically fished. I won that regional championship. I went to another regional on Sam Rayburn. And then after that tournament, I didn't do well in the tournament because I was just not into it. I wasn't having fun. I was kind of checked out. And I'm like, if I'm going to be checked out and not enjoying this, I'm not going to fish. And I literally put the boat away, Matt, in the garage for 2 years. I didn't catch a bass for 2 years. From 2013 to 2015, I never made a cast with a fishing pole or caught a bass in 2 full years.
What'd you do?
I did school. I hung out with friends, did clubs, did internships for business, and just
what kind of clubs were you in?
I did a lot of the business, like honor societies.
Oh,
and
I gotcha.
Different stuff like that. So
interesting. All right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna take a break, and when we get back, I'm interested to see what happened in 2015 that made you want to pick the rod, because you're not doing YouTube videos, nothing at this point. You were a college angler.
Not thinking about fishing at all, like for 2 years.
All right. It's BTL with Jonny Schultz from Fish the Moment. We'll be back after these.
Bigger and better. The Lowrance Ultimate Fishing System upgrade now offers more. A new $200 rebate on active target live sonar, and bigger savings with up to $1,200 cash back. Pick fish finding tools to fit the way you fish. From high-performance sonar and ultra-quiet ghost trolling motor to navigation and networking tools that bring it all together. Find more, see more, catch more.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
I've made my living on the water for over 20 years.
For 14 years.
For over 23 years.
I've worn a bunch of different clothing brands over the years.
Some companies big.
And some companies small.
All of them said they were making clothing for us.
But none of them knew us.
None of them were us.
Except for one.
Except for one.
Except one.
AFCO.
AFCO.
AFCO. AFCO.
Fishing isn't part of us. It is us.
The KVD 100 jerkbait. 15 different colors. A perfect combination of roll, wiggle, and flash. Increased castability. 3D eyes. Premium black nickel hooks. KVD. Tie one on. Striking lures.
Are you looking to install your own fishing electronics? Well, the Bass Tank is here to help you. The solution is the Bass Tank Power Harness. It takes the guesswork out of installation. No more voltage issues or interference. Designed by an engineer so that you can get professional results right there in your own garage. Installation done right with the help of the Bass Tank Power Harness. You can feel confident knowing that your installation was done right. The Bass Tank Power Harness. Give us a call or order yours today at thebasstank.com.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
Welcome back to Bass Talk Live, talking with Jonny Schultz. And if you saw that that was a new ad. We're working our way towards that. That's one of your many business ventures that you called me a couple months ago about. And I'm intrigued. I was intrigued by it. So we'll get there. But when we left off before the break, you were a disenfranchised college freshman who was interested in business and economics and realized that professional bass fishing made absolutely no financial sense. And you put your rods and reels up and you didn't make a cast for 2 years. So take it from there, Jonny.
I know this story sounds very dramatic. That was a great way to build suspense. It was actually true. Yeah, basically I didn't do anything fishing related at all. I didn't watch fishing. I didn't do much of anything. And it was interesting because I was actually getting into my MBA program, and I did an accelerated program where I went straight from my undergrad into my MBA. And one of the guys who's in the MBA program was like, "Hey, I heard that you fished," because one of my other friends told him. I don't know how it came up. And apparently he searched me online. And when you typed in Jonny Schultz fishing, there's this article that has like this super hyperbolic statement that says, Jonny Schultz, the youngest professional bass fisherman. And it was written in like 2008 or something. Like I was like 12 years old or whatever. So that was a very, I wouldn't say that's a very accurate article, but it was there. And that was the first thing he saw when he searched me. And he was like, "Man, if you're that great, I want to take you on the lake and you need to show me how to fish." And he had a boat, and he's like, "We're going to this little lake and actually live right by it now," which is kind of funny. And we go out there, and he's like, "I hear that you could do offshore fishing and all this stuff. I've never caught fish offshore. Show me how it's done." And I was like, "Okay, man, we'll go out there." And I graph around for a little bit and use his side imaging, and I find this roadbed that's loaded up with fish. And literally the first spot I pull up on after not fishing for 2 years, I throw a football jig down there. We catch 19 pounds on 5 fish. And my first fish I catch back after 2 years is like a 3.5 pounder. We hammer him. And this dude's freaking out because he's like, never seen anyone fish offshore. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to read my fish finder. You know how to do all this stuff. You need to teach me, and you need to teach other people. And one thing led to another. I don't know how it happened, but someone convinced me that I needed to start a YouTube channel to start talking about electronics and offshore fishing and all that stuff. And I was like, I don't know if I really want to do that. So I started just making like pond videos with like a GoPro on my chest just to see. And I eventually started making videos on offshore fishing and brought my boat out of confinement after 2 years, pulled out that old 2005 Triton.
Hadn't run any ethanol through that thing?
Nothing. So I got it checked up. We're still good. And I'm still running that same Triton from the 2005 Triton. Got 1,600 hours on the engine, and we're still rolling strong. And yeah, that was it. One thing led to another, and now we're here where we are.
You're about to hate me.
Oh no.
Nighthawk Publications, the youngest pro fisherman with Jonny Schultz. I think it'll expand it. Look at that.
Oh, there's the jersey.
Look at that.
Man, look at those patches. Dang.
Look at the
like
slacks. The slacks give Guy Eaker a run for his money.
Look at those sleeves.
The curve in the bill give Chad Morgan-Taylor a run for his money. Look at that one.
You like the
next
chrome
to the hog
hat? They need to bring that back, man. That's chrome.
Were those the Cocoons glasses that went over your actual glasses?
Ish Monroe was my pro staff manager over at Cocoons. I was sponsored by him.
There's another one right there. Editor's note. Oh, they came out when you were 14. 14-year-old Jonny Schultz of Little Rock, Arkansas, started his fishing career when he was 7 years old. Now that he's 14, he's earned $20,000 in college scholarships. This week, we'll see how this phenomenal young man has made his life, living, and fortune as a professional fisherman and learn what the future holds for him.
Little bit of hyperbole, but
what do you think your favorite fishing lures were back then? Don't read the article.
In 2000, I was 14, so
Yeah.
I just won a junior.
This is like this is a 5-part interview with Jonny Schultz. By the way, we'll just go through the day one.
I just won a junior state championship in Arkansas. I caught him on a Strike King Series 1 crankbait, Strike King custom shot flat side crankbait, and then a Strike King Ocho.
So I would say that one of those 3 baits.
According to this, you really like to fish soft plastics, and Strike King just came out with their Perfect Plastics line.
Boom, look at that. That was a good sponsor.
But yeah, you
right
also
there.
talk about it. Is this the beginning? Oh, here's the beginnings. Oh, what do you do as a professional bass fisherman? I do seminars in Bass Pro Shops and at the Bassmaster Classic each year. I promote Strike King lures, Plano tackle boxes, and my sponsors' products, not only in the seminars I give, but also in the tournaments I fish. All right,
you're really going into this, Matt.
That's good stuff. So you started the YouTube thing. You kind of got back into it a little bit. At that point, was there any thought of monetizing it?
So it was interesting because when I was getting my MBA, like I'm very risk averse. That's one of the reasons I didn't become a professional bass fisherman in general. Basically, I don't want to take a lot of risks with like my future, my finances.
Oh,
like
bass fishing is a horrible. That literally, outside of like playing poker, might be one of the worst decisions you could make.
Yeah. So I didn't want to gamble my future earnings. I knew I could earn a good living if I worked in business. So I was working for Nestle USA. I was a demand forecaster during my MBA. I was working full time. Pizza,
like
DiGiorno Pizza.
Oh, okay. They're owned by Nestle. I did not know that.
Yes. Yep. So I would forecast
self-rising
the demand
crust.
for Walmart.
Stuff's
there
delicious.
We go. Yep. Cheese filled, everything, all of it. And I would forecast like how many pizzas Walmart thought they were going to sell every single year. And that was my job. And I did that. I did all the data analytics behind it, all the modeling, the forecast modeling, and the big data analytics, stuff like that. And one of my buddies was like, your channel's blowing up. You could probably make a living doing the YouTube stuff if you really wanted to. And I was like, dude, I have like 10,000 subscribers. It's way too risky. I'm not going to do that. And I started my career. I graduated my MBA, started working for Nielsen, doing digital marketing analytics for Walmart, working with Walmart marketing, but through Nielsen, the TV ratings company.
Yeah.
And I was doing all the creepy like Facebook tag stuff. So like when you like get an ad for like when you say marshmallows and then you get marshmallow ads popping up, like that was what I was doing.
You ever like grab your friend's phone and just say really weird stuff over and over and over into it, and then they're like, why are gerbils showing up on my newsfeed?
Yep. So I was doing that stuff, and I was in corporate, and my YouTube channel, for whatever reason, I was still making YouTube videos. I was still doing it just for fun, but it just blew up. Like March, April, sometime like that in like 2018, it just blew up. And I actually, at that point, I met my future wife, and she was running her own business. And she told me that, she was successful with her own personal business. And I told her when we first started dating, I would never quit my job to start my own business. I wanted a safe, secure job in corporate. I was a manager at this, good company. I'm just going to stick to that path and just go all the way until I'm a VP or something. And it's literally all thanks to my wife that I was able to find the courage to leave my corporate job and start doing YouTube full time after we kind of found some revenue streams. We found some ways to kind of make it work. And I worked in corporate for like a year and a half and was able to quit to do YouTube full time. And there's a lot of steps in between there, obviously, but that's basically what happened.
Sure. So I went back to that. So like your first YouTube video that like blew up, I mean, you had one that had like 17K big bass and deep brush 5 years ago, but you're dealing with like 2K to 7K. And then all of a sudden you come up with how to catch winter bass on crankbaits in 40-degree water, and it goes to 83,000 views. Like what caused that?
I think what I found out was that people really liked when I started analyzing the conditions and giving as much data on my fishing trip as possible. So I would provide navionics maps of the exact spots I'm fishing. I would use Google Earth and break down what the rocks and stuff look like. I would show sonar recordings of, hey, there were bait fish out in front of this riprap bank. That's why these fish were holding up here. All those things. And I started providing data to back up what I was doing. And I think that gave me a lot more credibility, because I think up to that point, people still, I never talk about like all the stuff we talked about in this interview, Matt. Like I never talked about this on my YouTube channel. This is probably a lot of my
Have you
audience
ever
is
done
probably
it?
hearing this. Never. This is probably the first time.
You're cool with it?
Ever. Yeah. I mean, it's fine.
I mean, I'm curious. I was just asking questions because like I knew you as the 8 and 10-year-old fishing nerd. And then I knew you had some success in the juniors and you went to Arkansas, and then you were kind of off the map for a long time. And then like you popped up 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And now you're like one of the top guys in the industry when it comes to like education and kind of really hardcore content.
For sure. And I guess my always thought on it was people aren't going to care if I caught fish as a junior in the high school tournaments or like as a college angler. That people aren't going to, that's not going to allow me to gain any sort of credibility by talking about what I have done. So I have to just prove myself with every next video, make it better, provide better information, explain it clear, give more detail. And I just kept going and going. And it went from, the video's taken me maybe 4 or 5 hours to make, 2-3 hours. And then like I did this one video, everything you know about fish finders, or a complete guide to fish finders. And I did side imaging, down imaging, everything. And that video took me 68 hours to edit.
When was this?
And that was probably 3 years ago. It has like 1.3 million views. Really? And I realized at that point, if I put more effort into my videos than anybody else and make them as clear and as detailed as possible, I can get more views. And that's kind of the strategy I took.
All right. So this is a key point here. So you're saying that your growth on YouTube, on social media, was based on the quality of your content, not on tapping into an algorithm or any of that stuff that a lot of the people that are outside the YouTube world who watch it say, oh, well, the Guggen Squad algorithm is what everyone always used to talk about. But you're saying there's a direct correlation on your channel between effort put into it, quality content, and time spent, and showing proven results and views.
Yeah, that's how I've done it. I mean, obviously there's things you can do with the titles and the thumbnails that get more clicks and stuff like that. But I mean,
it's a necessary evil at some point.
Yeah, and that's just you have to play the game. But for me, I always feel like if I can provide high quality content, people will come back. And it's also helped with like now I used to do a lot of personal instruction, one-on-one video lessons with guys, on the water lessons. I do seminars, and people trust my opinion and my teachings. And I also try really hard. I'm a pretty perfectionist, kind of detail-oriented guy. So I also try to give really clear examples, lots of good graphics. And I just say, if I am going to present something to you, it would be what I wanted to be presented to me. And I'll never try to shortcut my audience, or like if I get a video that I feel like it's just, it's not that great, I just won't post it. I've binned and not made hundreds of videos over the years that probably are just easy, or I could just sit down and talk about a bait and post it. But I want to be able to talk about why I'm doing that. And here's proof of me catching fish doing that. And then here's the sonar images that go along with that and backing it up and giving all this proof, because for me, that is important, especially if I was watching the content, because I wouldn't just believe some random guy who got up there and started talking about baits without seeing him actually go catch fish on it. And I think that that's been a big benefit to me over the years.
So you're saying that your, for lack of a better term, legitimacy as an angler, why you can do a video titled "Find 10 times more bass with these sonar" and how bass move and all this, is because, not because you're just saying it on a video, you're actually going out and proving it in the video and then presenting it in a professional manner. So you're legit. That's the old saying, the proof is in the pudding.
The way I say it is, it's not clickbait. People always get mad with clickbait. Clickbait is where you put some title and a thumbnail up, and when you click the video doesn't back up what the title and the thumbnail say. I try to make clickbait titles but back up the content. So it's no longer clickbait. It's just accurate, but it's still eye-catching. So I wouldn't say my titles are clickbait. My titles are eye-catching and they capture the audience, but I always deliver on the promise of what I put in my titles, my thumbnails. But to do that, I spend hours and hours and hours working on the video and multiple days on the lake to film certain videos. I mean, if you think about it, 8 hours in the lake, 10 hours in the lake just to go, I might go 3 times for one video, then spend 15 hours editing it. Right there, that's 30 to 40 hours for one YouTube video.
Do you feel like the fact that you're not fishing under circumstances that you can't control, like when you're practicing for a tournament, you're at a lake, you have to practice for it, you're trying to find tournament especially, let's talk opens level, let's talk AAA level, Toyota's opens level, you have the pressure on all that, you're forced to fish certain ways and do certain things and do it. Do you feel like, and let's be honest, I mean, you're getting 20, 30, 40,000 views on most of these videos, and there's maybe 1,000 guys that fish it between all the Toyotas and the opens and stuff, maybe a couple thousand guys that'll fish a division and dive in there. So the vast majority of these guys are if they're fishing tournaments, are fishing at a lower than that AAA level. Do you feel like your ability to go do that for 3 days and stuff allows you to take little nuggets and spend way more time on it and go way more in depth on little things that you just simply wouldn't be afforded the time to if you were under the time crunch of, say, 2.5 days of practice?
For sure. And also, I'm not as afraid to fail. I think that's the biggest thing. I think that's that is the biggest challenge to overcome in tournament fishing, I feel like. And I guess I'll ask your opinion on this, Matt, but I feel like the fear of failure is what causes more poor tournament finishes than anything else. Would you agree with that?
Okay, let's analyze this. The fear of failure causes more poor yeah, because that's called spinning out.
Yep.
When you spin out, all you're saying is, I'm scared that I'm not going to catch him and I don't know how to catch him.
Yep.
So yeah, that would be fear of failure.
Like, let's say you could spend 2.5 days going out to the lake. Like, I can go out and say, I want to film a video about finding shell beds. And I want to talk to you about how to find shell beds in 2 to 4 foot of water on a certain lake. Well, I can go to Kerr Lake and I can go graph for 25 hours if I want to and find a handful of shell beds that have fish on them and then go make a video about that. And I could go for 2 full days and not find anything. And then the third day find them. Well, if you were in a tournament practice and you have 2.5 days of practice and you go out and graph for shell beds for 2 full days and that's all you've done, now you're going out and the third day you're like, I have to just, scrap that and figure out something else to do, or I can keep going. I can keep pushing it. And I think that a lot of times it allows me to find patterns. I try not to do my videos. I don't like doing basic stuff. Like, I'm not flipping laydowns down the bank in the spring when everyone else is doing. I like to find patterns that are off the wall, that are random, that other people aren't doing. So I think that makes the most interesting content. And it's also content that a tournament angler can use in a tournament. Like, anyone can go in Grand Lake in the spring and throw a spinnerbait down the bank and catch a few fish. That's not super helpful. But if you can go to Grand Lake and show guys how to idle shallow high spots or like these little depressions and ditches and show how to throw a jerkbait for those fish in 5-6 foot of water on live scope, that's a pretty unique pattern. And it takes sometimes a lot of time to find that.
So this is kind of a 2-part deal. Would you say the vast majority of your listeners do tournament or what? Viewers? What do you call them? Viewers, listeners, fans?
Viewers, fans.
Viewers. Yeah. Do tournament fish or just want to learn how to bass fish better on the weekends when they get out?
I think it's a combination of both. I think that there's some guys who do tournament fish. It's funny because I do have several guys who fish the BPT Tour, the Elite Series, and the Bass Pro Tour, all those circuits that watch my YouTube videos. So like, I know several pros that watch my stuff, which is kind of cool. But then there's also the local BFL guys, the local guys who fish just the, Fishers of Men tournaments on the weekends, the local team trails. And then there are guys who just fish 3-4 days a week. They're just retired and they just want to catch more fish and they have nothing else to do with their time but go to the lake 2 or 3 times a week. They don't necessarily care about tournament fishing, but they put in as much time and effort to go catch fish as a tournament angler. And so it's really those super passionate, enthusiastic anglers. And honestly, that's the people who would watch my content, because otherwise my content probably would be pretty it's really detailed and it could be pretty dry, I guess, or it could go over your head very easily if you're not in it and trying stuff all the time. Because I talk about my videos have a ton of info in them.
You have to have a foundation in order to fully appreciate them.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically, you're saying you can't suck.
Well, you can suck, but like
you know what I mean. You have to have a basic.
Yeah.
This is not your YouTube channel. Isn't for here's how to spool a bait caster.
Correct.
You're assuming that they're coming in with a basic knowledge of bass fishing and then using your content to improve it, to supplement it, to give them ideas when they go out on the water to help put them in a position to succeed.
Correct. And I think that I hear from a lot of guys, they'll say, I watched your videos 3 years ago and I went and rewatched them and I learned something completely different because now I have 3 more years of experience and I completely missed this point that you made in this video because I didn't even know enough about fishing to know what you were talking about. But now I watch the same video 3 years later and it works. And I think that's one thing about my YouTube videos. I get a lot of repeat views. On average, guys watch my videos like 3 or 4 times per video. I think that's why my views are pretty high.
Really?
Is it's not actually I have as many viewers, but I have a lot of guys rewatching my videos a lot.
Huh. How many days a year would you say you spend on the water?
In the past, more than I do now. I would say maybe 80 to 100 like last year. This year, probably going to spend like 1 day a week at most with all the deep dive app stuff and everything. But I used to spend more, put it that way.
Well, you mentioned it. Well, let's take a deep dive into that app.
There we go.
I did that there. You have a number of different, I guess, business ventures that kind of surround the whole Fish the Moment brand. Lake Map Breakdowns. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Lake Map Breakdowns.
Where, guys can send in their maps or say, hey, this is my fishery. You'll give them some general areas to kind of start based on the patterns. Do you do like one-on-one consulting, that type of thing too?
Yeah, I used to do that. I don't do those anymore, unfortunately. Okay. But I used to do that. Do seminars, get guys and do like 3-hour seminars on topics, stuff like that.
And then this newest, which is interesting because there's a whole different world of bass fishing apps out there too. And there's everything from, I guess that I would say the first, like, I don't want to call it a bass fishing app, but little tweaks and things you can do go all the way back to the color selector. Okay. Here's a thing where you don't know what to do. Here's a machine that you drop your whatever it is in the water and it says blue or it says chartreuse. Really, that might be the first bass fishing app.
Yeah.
Based on it would be the old school color selector. But the deep dive app is something that you've been working on for a long time, and how is it different from all the other apps that are out there in your opinion?
So just like my YouTube channel, I like to back up everything that I do with real data and real results. And I think a lot of the fishing apps that are out there, they try to do that by crowdsourcing information. Like, here's where a guy caught a fish at some point. And they can drop a pin on the map. Well, we don't know what size that fish is. We don't know when it was caught. We don't know if it was accurate, if that person was telling the truth. There's all these different issues with that. So we don't have reliable data. And I used to do demand forecasting, as I mentioned, for Nestle. And the only way you're going to forecast demand properly is having good data and having good models. And I think about, and this is cool using my past experience with data analytics, I basically think about bass fishing as demand forecasting. When you're demand forecasting for Walmart or let's say DiGiorno Pizza, you can use past sales data, you can use seasonality, you can use the demographics of the consumer, you can use all these different factors to build a heuristic model or an actual forecast model that predicts when and how often someone is going to buy a pizza. You can do the same thing with fishing. If you get enough data together, you can predict where the bass are going to be, when they're going to eat, and what they're going to eat, if you have enough data. Well, right now, there's not a lot of data. And if you think about sports, like Matt, think about basketball or football or anything like that, analytics is taking over every single sport. Baseball, basketball, football. Think about basketball, the three-point shot taking over the NBA, Steph Curry, all that stuff. Not a big deal back in the day. If you look at football, you got guys going for 2-point conversions way more often than they used to, and also going for it on fourth down because the analytics, the data shows that is probability-wise a better outcome. Bass fishing doesn't have a lot of that happening in it right now. And that's what I'm trying to do with the Deep Dive app, is actually take real results from actual tournament finishes. So like actual tournaments that have been fished, what are the best patterns, the best areas in the right seasons, in the right conditions, and basically scraping all this data together by observing actual fish catches from tournaments and then compiling that data together and predicting what the fish are going to be doing using that data. So it's an actual data-backed approach to figuring out what the fish are doing, as opposed to hearsay or just like, tribal knowledge, like what someone has said in the past, whatever it is, stuff like that.
So it's like Moneyball for fishing.
Exactly.
And how are you getting the data again too? Because like on the BPT now they record like everything, and on the Elite Series you have the live and you can get all the data of fish times and catches, and then you go back to see the top 10 finishers and all that, and you start compiling it, and the more and more and more you get, the more accurate your picture is.
Yeah, you can, with the video that's out there, all the free video that's available out there, you can go out and you can look at, an Elite Series live video and see the sky conditions. You can see the water clarity. You can get the water temperature if you're really good at looking at the graphs, like when they show the different shots of the graphs. It's a lot of work. And I compile all that data. So it took, basically I'm working on this for about 3 years now.
No joke.
Yeah.
All right. So this is why I was intrigued with this, because it didn't seem like a flat. Like I talked to you about it, and you're like, "Well, dude, yeah, I've been working on it for a long time." And I was like, "Okay." And then I looked at it. So there's more. I don't even know how to. There's more to it than just, hey, here's where they catch you at the time of the year. You've got all sorts of weird factors in, like live factors and all sorts of stuff too. So explain how that works into it to make it even more accurate.
So you can pull in. We automatically pull in the sky conditions.
Here, I'm going to share it.
Yeah, the sky conditions. You pull in the whether it's pre-front, post-front, the precipitation chance, all these different weather factors, and then you can actually go in and select. So if you go up to the very top there, you can see the actual interface. So you can select your water clarity, your water temperature, whether you're in wind-protected areas or in wind-blown areas, whether there's grass or not. We pull the current flow for your lake if it's available, and we can track it. And then you pick whether you want to fish shallow or deep, so shallow or offshore. And we then recommend baits, areas, and if you scroll down, like you get a bait, we start at the bait level because that's how a lot of guys like to do it, and that obviously updates as the conditions change. But we also give you detailed example images from contour maps. We give you side imaging, down imaging recordings for offshore areas of what to look for, like what a rock pile or a shell bed or a brush pile looks like on a fish finder. We give you drone shots of what a rock transition looks like, or a bluff wall or a pea gravel bank. And all these data points, again, are coming from real results. And then each pattern, when you click into it, you get, this is the bait. Here are all the factors, all the different types of cover or structure where guys have caught fish on that bait in those exact conditions, the exact weather conditions, the exact water clarity, water temperature, all those different things. And you can even see this projected out into the future. So you can go up to, right now, we're going up to 4 days in the future. We're actually working on getting that out to like 7 or 10 days.
Okay,
out.
so like right now, let's do this. This is a Table Rock one. So it's, let's just say this is current. It's 65 degrees, partly sunny, 36% chance of rain. What is this little
current
thing
flow? 4,000 cubic feet.
So
per
that's the
second
current flow right there.
Yeah.
The water level's stable, and there's a south wind at 15 miles an hour.
Yep.
The water temp is 62 degrees. Are you putting all this info in?
So you just have to put in the water clarity, the water temperature.
So that's the only two things you're putting in. So obviously no grass on Table Rock.
And I wouldn't say these strategies right here. These are actually from our These are marketing images from.
I know what you're saying. I'm just running through it in theory.
The bait there. I'm like, that one doesn't make sense. I don't think
that's what you put in, and then it tells you it'll recommend it, but it's not like this is the only thing. But it also, what I'm interested in too is the contour lines and kind of areas. Go into more instead of, so like there's a bunch of other apps out there that are like, hey, these are baits that we recommend under these conditions.
Yep.
But the thing that I like about this is, for me as an open angler, like I don't need an app to tell me what I want to throw.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it can't hurt me. It can't hurt. I mean, I always need to be open and learning, but I like that this has stuff that I haven't thought of, or
So,
that
like,
is
if
hard
you-
for me to figure out because I have issues with cardinal directions.
Like I can show the app here actually.
Okay,
Like I can
hold
pull it
on.
up on my screen. I know this is not the best way to do this. I could share.
No, this
I could
is
share my
good.
Screen. But
This is good
basically,
here.
here's
Hold
the
on a
app
second.
right now. Yep.
See, I can even do this.
Oh, boom. Okay. So basically, what we have going on here, I'm actually going to turn my
And
little
talk it through
light
for
up
the
here.
iTunes and Spotify
Okay.
listeners.
So basically, I have Beaver Lake pulled up right here. We can see
Okay.
the current. It's a little bit blurry, but you got 5,000 cubic feet per second.
Yep.
That's the current flow. We have our wind gusts with our wind at southwest, so pretty good fishing conditions. And so then you have clear water, 58 degrees, wind blown areas with no grass because it's Beaver Lake.
Yep.
And we have shallow patterns. So on this, you have your suspended
Yeah.
jerk bait. You got a
Plug.
squirtle crankbait in red, and you got a spinner bait, a white spinner bait.
That's fair.
So winds
All right.
blowing, clear water, 58
Yep.
degrees. Those fish should be up there. You
Yep.
can also go to your deep patterns. So deep patterns, you might want to say, okay, I'm going to go fish a rock crawler, wiggle wart off the bank, maybe on some like secondary points or something like
Mhm.
that. So we're going to click, let's say that rock crawler pattern. We rank this by effectiveness based on all of our tournament data. And you can see here backed by the tournament data. And then we have the ease of use. We give you your bait. We give you the section of the creek that you should be in. So in this case, you should be in the back half of the creeks. Based on what we've seen from the tournament results, more guys are catching fish in the back half of the creeks on this pattern than anywhere else.
With this water temperature and this wind and this, like that, all that.
Correct, with all the
Okay.
factors. Next, you scroll down, you have your structure. So here's your structure that you should be fishing. So you have like an offshore flat here. That's a place where guys have caught them. I think that's from a Brandon Polnick tournament. Grand
Now,
Lake.
are those just examples of what they look like? So then you
Correct.
can say, okay, this looks similar on my unit to these types of places.
Correct, exactly. So you have like a ditch this time of year. You have a ditch in that situation, offshore flat. And again, these are places where guys have caught them in the past. So like this is someone caught them on a off in deeper water on a rock crawler crankbait or like a medium diving crankbait on these type of structures in these conditions before. So you know that every single time you get one of these structures recommended, someone has caught them doing this before, if that makes sense. So it may, we give you multiple options because not every time you go to the lake, every pattern is going to be working.
Right.
So we give you some ideas of what has worked. We then give you some cover. So in this case, we have some stumps. So in those situations, these guys were catching them on stumps. For whatever reason, that was that pattern. And we've identified that that's a pattern that guys are using medium diving crankbaits. I say rock crawler, but it could be more of like a, Series 5 Strike
10,
King.
Series 5,
Yeah.
whatever.
So you have stumps, and then you have the depth range it should be in based on the water clarity. And then you have a retrieve video, and you have the gear. So you have your rods, your line, your gear ratios, all that stuff.
It's pretty solid, man.
You get that for every single pattern. And, when you go through there, it's really cool because you can actually, you can say, okay, this is how guys have caught them in tournaments. And it's not foolproof. No forecast. One thing I will say, no forecast is 100% accurate.
Yeah.
I would get a raise at my job if I had 80% forecast accuracy. People would love me. If I had 65% forecast accuracy, they wouldn't be mad at me.
But it gives you
And
a
so-
starting point. It gives you an idea.
Yeah.
It puts you in the ball game.
Yeah, gets you kind of getting in the right direction. And that's the thing about this app that I think is really useful is that these are the higher probability areas. So it allows you to start eliminating some of the lakes. So if you think about that, if you say, I want to fish in the clear water section of the lake, pick that strategy and it says fish in the back half of a creek, you've eliminated 90% of your lake now. You only have to go to the clear water section of the lake in the back half of creeks. That's maybe 60, 70, 80% of your lake is now eliminated. Next, you can then say, I'm only going to fish around rounded points, ditches, or offshore flats. That probably eliminates another third of the lake or maybe more in that section you've already narrowed it down to. And then you have to find the areas where you have that cover. So you can really start narrowing down exactly where you're going to go if you have the prerequisite knowledge to take advantage of that pieces of information. And that's really the thing about the app is we provide all of the data
for you to make your decisions on, but we're not telling you go fish exactly right here and catch fish. It's more, here's how we can help you narrow down your search, but you still have to take it from there to go put them in the boat.
That's all based off of DiGiorno pizza, huh?
Yeah, DiGiorno pizza.
All right.
That 2 years off of fishing was worth it. That's
why it intrigued me. So, how much is this thing a month?
So it's $9.99 a month, or you can get it for a year, and it's the price like $6 a month if you get the year.
That's less. Yeah, that's less than one bait.
Less than one bait. You can less than a crankbait. Instead of going and buying a $13 crankbait or a jerkbait, you can get all the data from all these past tournaments and like actually know what you need to be throwing.
And you can just look it up in the App Store on your phone.
Yeah, just look up Deep Dive in the App Store, and it should be the first one that pops up, or Deep Dive Fishing. And you can also find it on our website, deepdivefishing.com. Or no,
so you've looked at this a lot if you've put 3 years. So how does this work? Is this like, how do you just do an app, like develop an app? You're like, you do the YouTube and all this stuff. Like, you just decided, let's do an app? Or you saw a need for it? Or
I got reached out to by a team of guys who develops apps in Austin, Texas. And they literally reached out to me by email and were like, hey, we want to make an app. And most of the time I would be like, I don't really know. And I don't know these guys. But for some reason I took the call. I always say, try to take every opportunity you can. Don't leave any opportunities on the table. So I met with the guys, talked to them, and I was like, they seem like they know what they're doing. They had a good resume of apps that they've made and sold in the past and stuff like that. And it's just those three guys and myself, we started making the app, and it's all made just with the four of us, and blood, sweat, tears, and time, and a lot of hours, a lot of effort to put it together. But yeah, that's the deal.
And then, so like, I mean, if you're on a Grand, if you're on a Beaver, a Eufaula, Kentucky Lake, Champlain, any of the big lakes, all that stuff's in there. What if you're on like a Lake Decatur in Illinois, where there's like no data, where there's no, there aren't major tournaments, there aren't tournaments, or it's a smaller fishery. Does this stuff translate to those too, or?
Yeah, so one thing that if you kind of fish around all around the country, you'll notice that certain lakes, if you can identify key features from those lakes, you can actually predict which patterns are going to translate from one lake to another, even if you don't have data on that specific lake. So let's say you have a lake here in Arkansas or Oklahoma, like a Grand Lake. Grand Lake fish is very similar to Falls Lake or Sheeran Harris Lake sometimes, maybe not Sheeran Harris, but like Falls Lake or Jordan Lake over in North Carolina. And maybe there's not a ton of tournaments out there, or no tournaments that we have data on, but a lot of the features are the same. Your average depth, the compositions of the banks, all these factors. And so when we add lakes into the app, we have like 1,500 lakes in the app currently. We're adding more every day. And we take these factors based on the specifics of that lake, and then we are able to provide patterns from lakes that have similar characteristics. So again, obviously it's not perfect because you're predicting what's going to happen across different lakes based on lakes we have data on, but it's the best that we're able to get. That's the thing, is that in my mind, having some data to work off of, or some information, a lot of times better than no data, even if it's only 65% accurate.
Yeah. You got like tides and stuff in there too for tidal fisheries yet, or is that coming down the road?
That's coming down the road. That's a little bit harder challenge to put together. We get a lot of requests for the Potomac River and places like that, and we're trying to figure out how we get the tide charts to work, and that's a lot of complexity. So we focus mainly on just right now we actually just have largemouth bass for a bunch of different lakes around the country. We're going to be adding smallmouth bass here in the coming months.
So like you could say, hey, I want to target smallmouth bass on Kentucky Lake.
Correct.
And then they'll say, whatever, gravel bars or steep bluff, or, these are the baits that smallmouth have historically been caught on in events.
Correct. Or like obviously for the guys up north, we want to get the smallmouth out, but obviously just building the stuff for the largemouth took an incredible amount of time, and we want to make sure the app was successful first.
You got to be pretty proud about this, dude. Like, you have to be pretty proud of this thing.
It's pretty cool. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, but
I think it could be, and there's so much more we're doing with it. I have a million plans, team. We have a million plans to make this app even more useful, improve the interface, and we're working on it every single day. Literally every day we're working on it to make it better. And I think it's something that I see as a way to give back to the fishing community and actually make anglers better. Just like you said, like the money ball with it's like the money ball of fishing. That's kind of what I'm thinking about. And if you can expose that to the average fisherman, I think that if they're able to consume the information in the way that it's intended, it can make you a lot better angler.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason why I like that is that's kind of my style of fishing too. Like I'm always doing statistics and saying, what do you need to average? Then what are your patterns? And then I'm analyzing the risk of the pattern. Like, no, I'm not going to run there. I only have like an 80% chance of getting back, with hitting stumps or catching limits and stuff. So I'm interested in it. And I'm glad that you're with BTL now for it. And I would be really interested to get some feedback from some of our listeners, some of our viewers who give it a shot as well.
For sure. Yeah, we were looking for feedback. Anything you guys have. Obviously, we're trying something that's very complex, so there are going to be little kinks and issues here along the way. Maybe a pattern that comes back is kind of off the wall or weird. And we've only been launched for 2 months now. So we're live for 2 months, and we are continuing to improve the algorithm, improve all of the ways everything pulls together. So we appreciate all the feedback we can get, because honestly, we want to make this something that's extremely useful for anglers. And we know we're not going to get it right the first try. No one gets anything that's complicated right the first try, but we're going to continue to improve it and work on it as well, which is, really the big goal.
I'm trying to figure out what exactly is an algorithm. Do you like type it in, or is it like a combination of things? Like, you probably know what an algorithm is. We always talk about it and you mentioned it, but I don't know exactly. Like, if you had to describe what an algorithm is, because that's like a lot of your stuff of what you do. What is an algorithm, Johnny?
In my definition, and I don't know if this is the right definition, but my personal definition would be taking a variety of factors that you have significant amounts of data on, and then linking them together in a way that produces a result that is accurate enough to be helpful, I guess. It doesn't need to be perfectly accurate, but it's accurate enough to give good feedback.
That's good with me. That sounds legit. In kind of layman's terms, I kind of understood what you said there a little bit. I always liked statistics. Like, that was always I always took statistics, upper division statistics. Like, I even took statistics as an elective class one time. And I literally got like 100% in every single statistics class I took. And I know that people around me, even in college and stuff, just struggled with it. And I was horrible at Spanish, any foreign language, like really, really bad, like barely got through them. But for some reason, I just like got it. And I'm really bad. I'm not like bad at math, but like I'm not good at math. But statistics, it just clicked in my head. I don't know why.
I love statistics. It's so cool when you start, because it's like, it's the most practical of all of the
it's actually
classes
useful
that you can take. Yeah. It's, unless you're starting your own business, like statistics is helpful in real life, like normal situations. So I completely agree.
All right, so the Deep Dive app, check it out, and that's your newest venture, business venture.
Yes,
that you've been working on for the past 3 years. That's cool. Have you always kind of had something in your head, like, I wish that I could put all these things together and it would make sense, and then you were like, okay, here's my opportunity?
I haven't wanted to do this since I started my YouTube channel, to be honest. I was doing this for a living, so I was like, man, I have all this data. I'm analyzing this. If I could just get enough data on these fishing tournaments, I could do something cool. But like back then, I was like, I don't know how I would market it. I don't know how I would do anything. Yeah. I'm not going to spend literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours collecting these tournament results without any, potential
and monetization.
Yeah. But now I can do it for a living, and no one else is doing it right now. So why not?
And they're cool with you being like, yeah, dude, like I'll call you back in 3 years.
Well, there's a lot of other stuff too that they're all the design and the back end. I mean, it's super complicated building an app, like all the because it's crazy. Some guys, we have like guys who send in support requests where they have a Samsung Galaxy 5 phone. Well, they're on Galaxy like 27. So this phone is like tiny and like the screen barely works, and we have to fit the interface so that it fits on every single possible imaginable screen. It's super complicated. We have like 40 or 50 different iterations of every single screen of the app to make it work.
How many different screens are there?
A crap ton. So many.
Like tens of thousands, right?
Yeah,
of
so there's
different
some
combinations
auto-sizing
and
and stuff, but like for certain things, we just have to redo it. You just have to do something different to make it work.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, we'll continue our conversations with, I've asked this to other guests, what would you call yourself if you had to give yourself a title as a whole over the course? Like if I was to say, we'll be back with blank, 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 Jonny Schultz.
Well, this might sound a little bit arrogant, but I'm going to go for it. Jonny Schultz, the fishing professor.
There we go. We'll be back with Jonny Schultz, the fishing professor, for the final segment of Bass Talk Live.
Elite Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polnick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
Vibrating jigs are a great choice for any time of year, and the Kamikaze Swim On is a perfect match for any vibrating jig. Two sizes and the unique tail design gives it a bait fish profile and a great swimming action for realism. There are 17 colors. See them all at bigbitebaits.com. The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are
combining one of the most popular hook styles with Gamakatsu's beefier Superline offering. The Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend delivers the strength necessary to target big fish in heavy cover. Well suited for braided line and heavier fluorocarbon, the Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend is built using stronger Superline wire that allows anglers to easily fish a finesse worm around heavy cover. The round bend offers a larger bite area, perfect for any worm presentation, while increasing your hookup ratios. The newly enhanced Z-Bend holds your plastics on the hook longer, reducing the number of pull-offs and reducing damage to plastics. Available in 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, and 5/0, this is the most durable worm hook, designed for heavier lines that hold your bait on longer.
Preparation is key to success. And that preparation starts well before you ever hit the water. You're only as strong as your connection to the fish, and your line is that critical connection. Confidence in your line every minute of every day on the water is a necessity, and failure, it's not an option. Sunline makes the fluorocarbon, nylon, and braided lines to give you the strength to guarantee your confidence.
The new Android series is the peak of the Denali lineup and offers the ultimate Denali experience. The Android series features 36-ton multi-directional graphite combined with interlock blank technology for added strength. Each rod is outfitted with royal titanium guides that will not fail. The blank is fitted into an easy-touch, soft-feel EVA foam grip with exposed blank reel seat. This all allows the Android to transmit every movement of your bait and even the most subtle bites. The Android series is the finest rod Denali has ever made and offers an angler the ultimate fishing experience with a limited lifetime warranty. See the full lineup of Android rods at denalirods.com.
Welcome back to BTO. Talking with Jonny Schultz. I got a little trigger happy there on the end of the Spro commercial there, Johnny, and I just want to let the listeners and viewers know what they missed out on. I believe that show ends with them saying that the Little John colors are available at spro.com, is what John Cruz would have said had I not clicked it there a little prematurely.
I actually was searching the different colors here on Tackle Warehouse while he was talking. I was like, dang, that looks pretty good.
That sparkling one is really sparkly. It's all good. So, can I just ask you some like YouTube questions, since that's your thing now that I've always wanted to know?
Yeah, man, go for it.
Do different people make different amounts of money based on their views, based on how many ads and all that stuff is? Like, I mean, how many views do you have to actually make a decent amount of money on YouTube?
Yeah, so basically the way that YouTube pays you is cost per 1,000 impressions. So every single time you get 1,000 views, you make a certain amount of money. And that amount of money is determined by a lot of different factors, but some of it comes down to your audience demographics. So like my audience, despite me being 27 years old, my average audience is 45 to 75 years old. So I have a very old audience, not old, but old relative to YouTube, because the average YouTube, I think like 65% of YouTube viewers are under 35. Well, I think like 70% of my YouTube audience is over 45. So okay. I have a very like a top heavy audience in terms of age. So that actually gets me more ad revenue than say,
because they typically have disposable income.
Correct. So that works out well. So if you're, depending on who you're targeting, you're going to get more ad revenue. And also there's seasonality to it. So obviously right before Black Friday, before Christmas, more advertisers are putting money into YouTube. So you get paid more because there's just more advertisement in YouTube overall. So it raises the ship.
Is it scary to have a lot of your revenue based on YouTube when we've seen different social media platforms come and go and all this stuff, and certain content get demonetized recently? Or is YouTube so ingrained in the culture now that it's like here, it's going to stay and there's not really any volatility in it?
I would say that would be very scary. I made a mission when I started my YouTube channel that I wanted YouTube ad revenue to be 10%, no more than 10% of my total revenue.
Would that be supplemental income?
Basically. So I basically make 90% of my income off of other sources other than YouTube. So if YouTube stopped paying me money tomorrow, I would be fine. I'd be able to
be living under a bridge.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Goes back to my risk averseness. I lots of revenue streams so that if anything happens, I can hopefully survive.
Do you like, let's say someone was like, Johnny, here's $50,000. You can only spend it on tournament fishing. Would you do it? Would you tournament fish at this point with no risk even?
I wouldn't. I really enjoy my family life, spending time with my wife, my mom, all of our family that's here. And I just wouldn't want to travel that much, honestly, being away from the house. It just doesn't appeal to me. And honestly, tournament fishing is really boring because you can't catch any fish. You drive around and then those fish change by the time you actually get out in the lake. And then you're fishing around a million other guys who are like all nervous and jacked up. And there's all this like tension and stress. And like, if I wanted fishing to be stressful and all that other stuff, sure. But like, when I go fishing, I'm relaxed. I can do what I want to do. I can go when I want to go. And it's awesome. It's what I really enjoy. And I think, the only thing I would say is I would like at some point, maybe just for my own personal pride to prove that I could go fish at that level, just to say I could go do it. But when I weigh that versus the time I'd lose to my family, I just don't find it's worth it. I don't need to stroke my own ego, I guess, in that sense. I'd rather just do what I'm doing and not lose that time with family.
All right. That's fair enough. You ever thought about writing a book?
Not. I'm working on the app for now, and then maybe we'll see down the road.
How much more advancement in technology is out there? I mean, you've got an app. You're with the Bass Tank still, right?
Yeah, working with the Bass Tank.
You've got an app. You're with the Bass Tank. You take Rick Clun out and teach him how to use side imaging. You do instructional videos. You do everything is cutting edge. How much more can it go? And is there a point where it's too much, in your opinion?
So I have a live stream coming out tonight, actually. I'm doing a live stream I want to talk about this in detail, about the importance of information in bass fishing. And what I always think about is that the more information you can have, the more of an advantage you have. And the most extreme example of this is like on the stock market. The people who can get the best returns for their companies, let's say it's a hedge fund, is someone who has insider information that nobody else on the market has. And if you can have insider, basically it's called insider trading. It's illegal. You can't do it, but people have. And there were like a lot of hedge funds in the early 2000s that were doing that and were getting consistent 30% returns over and over and over again every year, because they got insider information from people that worked at these companies to say, hey, there's going to be a big dip in our annual sales projections or whatever it is. And then they can sell or buy stocks off of that. Having that information that no one else has is super critical. So as long as there's an incentive for fishermen to get new information that gives them advantage over other anglers, they are going to continue to advance technology until some tournament organizations put a limit on it. As long as it's legal to get more info, that's why, with the forward-facing sonar, the guys who understand forward-facing sonar right now, your John Sukups, Jacob Wheeler, Dustin Connell, Scott Martins, those guys, they're dominating fishing because they get more info than anybody else using live scope. They understand how to use it to determine the bass's behavior, the size of the fish, the species of the fish, when to stay, when to go, when to not use live scope versus use it, versus a guy who just bought the live scope and threw it on their boat and don't know how to use it. That information advantage is huge. And so as long as there's information advantage to be gained by new technology and there's no limits on it, it's going to keep going until literally you can get X-rays glasses that show you where the fish are, and it's like sight fishing.
You think that could ever happen eventually?
Oh, yeah, it could if they let it get there.
I mean, you think that's possible?
Yeah. Yeah, but think about it, live scope glasses. You just look around. Why wouldn't it? As long as processing power and everything, they would get them wired up maybe. Like you put wire down your back or something, you get live scope glasses, and it's like artificial reality. I don't know if it's good for your eyeballs, but I mean, who knows? I think it could happen.
Wow.
I've never say never. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Think about that. You're live scoping with just turn your head and you look down 30 feet in the water. There's one picture drop shot over to it.
Chiropractors would hate those. Right now, it's like, I'm getting the beat down mount though, to where it's actually going to be able to go up waist high, or even a little bit higher here on the next cat. So
I'd break every Carolina rig rod I have. You go sweep the hook set.
Yeah, well, that's your problem. You're fishing with the Carolina rig.
That's true. That's all I throw. The spook and the Carolina rig. That's my only two baits.
I need to introduce you to Mark Jeffries.
Sometimes I combine them together. That's the real secret right there.
The floating deal. All right, what else you got, Johnny?
Well, one thing that is really intriguing, Matt, is I wanted to talk about this last tournament with you because I had a question for you. So there was that off day in that tournament, Bassmaster Open, where you're over on Lake Cherokee, and there was an off day. And everyone talks about, I talked to Bradley Hallman and Todd Castledine, guys like that, and they talk about how the pressure from these opens is so heavy that it completely changes the bass behavior. It makes the fishing terrible. If you catch 3 fish in an open sometimes, 3 bass, you're doing great. Like an average fisherman going out there with 0 almost every single day because of how much pressure there is out there. Maybe not. I don't know if that's true, but like
changes it.
It changes it. So if you're getting an off day like you guys did from the weather, the fishing improved dramatically, and then it dropped the second day. So what are your thoughts on having an off day on some of these tournaments? I know it's tougher for travel and stuff like that, but would you be open to an off day? Like you have 2 days of practice for the Open, an off day before the tournament, then it starts, just to improve the weights.
I'm just more, I mean, it'd be extra money to be on the road for that extra time. I like the Thursday, Friday deal for the Opens and being able to do the week, but more so than whether there's an off day or there's not an off day. It took me a while to get to this point, Johnny. And I used to be like, oh, it's bad fishing. It's horrible fishing. The conditions, there is a cancel day. There is a fog delay. But as long as everybody is competing under the same conditions and has the same equal advantage to win when they start calling boat number 1, I think the importance is there's going to be a first, a second, a third, a fourth, all the way down to 200th. And there's going to be that regardless of whether there's an off day or not, regardless of whether the fishing's horrible or the fishing is great. So from a enjoyment standpoint, maybe, yes. I also think it could work in reverse. I mean, this was also the spring with warming water temperatures, with fish staging in very obvious rock transitions and a lot of guys catching them up lake. So yeah, you're going to give the fish a rest there, but there's also the flip side where, you get into a different transition period and now those fish where they were are now gone. And now they're moving and leaving. So I don't know, when you get to that level, I think you just roll with whatever it is. It wouldn't bother me either way.
Okay, here's another question for you. These are questions I always ponder, and I always want to get your opinion because you talked to a lot of pros and stuff. I'm flipping this over. I'm interviewing you now.
All right.
So I thought about this the other day. I really like the Major League Fishing Cup events where they have no practice. They show up to a lake and they just fish.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on no practice for Bassmaster Opens? Save the money, save the time, no practice. You just get out there and you just fish, and you figure it out day of. Whoever figures it out the best in those 2-3 days, just fish the moment, like my channel, just go for it. If that was the case, would you like that? Is that good for the sport?
To me with these questions.
Is this good for the sport?
I don't think it's good or bad for the sport. Who it's bad for are the guys who make their living on that water, who guide. There's usually a bunch of those guys. I think it's bad for the town that is paying money for those people to come into because they're losing all that gas revenue. They're losing all of the hotel and food revenue, which is a big reason why they go to those towns. I mean, those towns pay to have them come there. Like I said, I mean, as long as it's even across the board, the only thing I would say is it is the Bassmaster Opens. That is why I think it should be open for anybody to fish, and there shouldn't be any off limits. I like the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You can't get any info, but dude, it's the Wild West, man. Yeah. The Opens are the Wild West, and that's part of the curse of it and what makes them so hard. But it's also part of the beauty of the Opens. Like I could pull up next to Brandon Polinick, or I could be in a shootout with a guy who's guided on the lake for 35 years, or I could beat the pants off a dude who spent 5 weeks practicing and camping there and put everything he had into it. Like, that's what I think make the Opens cool, is the fact that everybody goes about it so differently, and anybody who's got the money can enter them.
You're killing it with these answers, man. Thinking about the local economies. I mean, man, that is a good answer right there. You need to get someone to interview you once a week.
I was with Jeffries for 15 years, man.
Oh man. So do you think that would be cool for like the Elite Series? So maybe once or twice a year though, just say no practice. I think it'd be cool. Personally, I think
I think that would be cool.
Or like the Classic, go back to the no practice for the Classic, because it's kind of like the whole random lake. They just show up day of and fish. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I always wonder, like, who decided that 2.5 days of practice is what you get? Like, who decided that was the number? Why not 3.5 days of practice? Why not 1.5 days of practice? Why not 1 day? Like, when did they decide on 2.5? Just like when did they decide on 5 fish? I mean, I guess you have to pick one, but it was 11, and then it was 7, and then sometimes it was 6. I think Rick Clunn won a classic with 6 fish. Yep. And then now it's 5, but now I think it's been 5 for so long. And I'm just talking about the bass side. This isn't a slight towards anyone. Don't overread this. But in the 5, I think it's been 5 for so long that there are so many guys who their careers have been derived on how to catch 5 and built around 5 bites that you can't change it now. I think that was one of the major issues when they moved to the MLF deal, was you've got guys whose careers, their livelihoods are built on finding the 5 biggest bass that you can catch every day. Yeah. And now they're sending them over to a deal where it's not 5 and it's every fish counts regardless of what the weight is. But like, dude, you might be one of the top in the world at catching 5, but you might be 7,000th in the world at catching 20 2-pounders. But now you're up against it, and vice versa. You might barely be able to survive catching 5, but now you're crushing it catching numbers, because you're talking different patterns. You're an analytical guy, you're a numbers guy. It's a risk versus reward. Like, there's guys who get there on 13-pound bags and they cull through 30 fish a day, and there's other guys who get there on 6 bites a day and cull 1 time or no times.
Well, if you look at Hackney coming back to the Elite Series, stuff like that, I mean, that's just so.
I don't even know what the original question was, but I got fired up over it, Johnny.
No, it's good. No, I mean, I see the thing with the practice. I'm just throwing out questions to you, Matt. I get some guys are gonna be like, well, practice. One of the things about practice is you can have safe navigation. Like on
I was doing it on practice. I think if you change it now, the practice thing, you've got. I think a lot of guys make it because of the decisions that they make during practice. Yeah. So I think just like you change the dynamic with the number of fish and stuff, I think you change the dynamic of who succeeds if you change the practice. Because you have graphers, you have guys who like a Bill Lowen guy. Mm-hmm. Like, see it, fish it, flip to it. Those guys like that, they're not going to really have a difficult time adjusting to that. Like Brian Thrift also says, practice offshore, graph, try to find the offshore. If you stink at doing that, then go to the bank and chuck, because you know what you're fishing there. So I'm saying the practice thing, I think would impact specific groups of anglers way more than other groups of anglers. And right now, and I think we've seen that on the FLW Pro Circuit recently, where they've cut it out and it's like a day and a half of practice or just 2 days of practice. You've got guys that are spending all their money and their time, $5,500, traveling across the country. They're basically getting a day and a half of practice in here, and then it's go time. And I've talked to these guys, and they're like, dude, I don't even feel like I know the fishery by the time practice is over. Now, some of the guys are like, yeah, I love it. I don't have to spend the extra time and the extra money to go a day, and I just go with it. But there's a whole nother group of guys that are like, man, I've done this for 20 years, and I have my system for 3 days and how it works out. And now you're cutting all that out. I'm like a chicken with my head cut off out here, and I'm not even able to highlight the fishery because I'm just trying to figure out how to get around the joint.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What do you I would think, just based on what you've done, you would be in favor of practice, because now you're making decisions based off of data, and the more practice you have, the more data you have.
Personally, for me, I would love no practice tournaments. I would fish tournaments if it was no practice.
Really?
Because when I go to the lake, my favorite thing in the world is going out day of and like graphing for 5 hours. This is my normal fishing day, Matt, is I get to the lake, I graph for 5 to 6 hours, and I fish for 2 to 3 hours. And I find the fish day of and I catch them. And that's like how I do. And that's my 90% of my fishing days.
You enjoy graphing for 5 hours?
It's go back to the information thing. What I try to do when I get to the lake is I try to gather as much information as possible when I get to the lake. So my idea is I'm going to get there and I'm first going to observe all of the easy to observe conditions, the water clarity, water temperature, the wind directions, whether there's birds flying around, how high the water level is, all the basic stuff. Then I can use my fish finder to determine what depth the bait fish are at. How active are the bait fish? How active are the fish? How are they positioned relative to these different types of structure or cover? Are there a lot of fish offshore versus up shallow? What are all of the different factors? And I start eliminating options without ever making a cast using my electronics. Sometimes I'll drop the live scope in, look at a spot, and pull the trolling motor up without ever making a cast. And I'm now graphing with my live scope as well, because I can use it for a different tool.
And I normally never make a cast before at least 3 or 4 hours in the day, most days, because I'm trying to gather all the information before I actually make the decision. Because for me, just like a pro, I have to catch fish to make my living. So if I don't go catch fish in these videos, I'm wasting my days. So some days I spend 2-3 times to like getting a video, but most of the time, especially I do these catch 15 videos where I try to catch 15 pounds, no practice, nothing. I think I've done 9 or 10 of those now, and I've caught 15 pounds in 6 of the 10, and I've been close in the other ones. And in all of those videos, I never made a cast in the first 4 hours of the day. And I fish for 4 hours. And sometimes I fish shallow, sometimes I fish offshore. But I'm basically just going out and getting all the data I can first, analyzing it, then making the best decision off of that, rather than going and just trying to cast. And I see casting without knowing exactly what you're doing is wasting time. If I can gather all the information first, make my decision off of it, my chances of actually catching fish are a lot higher. And I feel like I have a skill at doing that. And that's why I feel like practice doesn't help me, because if I practice the day before, the fish can be in a completely different mood. And the whole process I went through to determine what they're doing is going to be different the next day. So I have to redo the whole process.
Yeah, that's smart. But that's where, as a tournament angler, I do it just the opposite. Instead of searching, here's what I'll do when I dump my boat in for practice. The first thing I'll do is, if I have something in my head that I think they're doing what I want, I'm going to the nuts juice the first day of practice and seeing if I can get bit. Whatever I think, whether it's legally someone saying, hey, this is an area, whether I've been there in the past, whether I've done Google Earth, YouTube, Facebook, whatever research to get it, I go to it. And if I don't catch anything at all, then it gives me a starting point regardless. It means I either have to rethink my strategy or it calms me down on a fishery I don't know. The second thing that I do is I run my BMR squared. I go to Bridges, Marina, Rip Rap, and Ramps. And you talk about patterns that change and don't change. There's typically a resident population of fish that live around bridges, marinas, Rip Rap, and Ramps year round. So I know if I've gone to what I think my best spot is. If I don't get bit, then I know I have a bunch of work. If I do get bit there, then I know that that's highly potential. Now I'm going to my safe stuff, the stuff that can I find, are they on the bridges? Can I go into a marina? Can I go down a stretch? Things where there's going to be fish that typically live there. And if I don't get bit there, I'd say 90% of the time, one of those 4 you're going to get bit off of, and then that's where you kind of develop your pattern there. But I don't know. I've never been a big grapher. Like, I mean, I use it a lot. I side image it a lot, but I just have never been like the Josh Douglas go through a freaking side of roast beef and, 3 bags of bread on the day while you listen to tunes out on the lake for 7 days in a row.
See, it's crazy. Your style of fishing would drive me crazy. I couldn't do it. It's so funny because I literally couldn't fish the way you fish. I don't think most people could fish the way I fish. I think I'm in the vast minority of it. Because in my mind, this is funny. I actually, every single month, Matt, I delete all my waypoints off all my graphs. I never keep waypoints. I hate having waypoints on my graph. Because I don't want to have any preconceived notions of where the fish are going to be.
But there's stuff that works. I mean, you fish table rock a lot. Dude, it's called table rock. Like, rock doesn't move. So there's fish that are going to use the same stuff all the time.
And I'll just re-find it. Because the thing is that maybe that rock pile that was there in 10 foot of water, maybe they're not in 10 foot, maybe they're in 15 feet and they're suspended over the top of it. So if I pull up to that rock pile and pull and fish the waypoint, maybe I'm not throwing the right bait or the right retrieve, or maybe I'm fishing a little bit too close to the waypoint. So I like to delete it all, and I'll just go regraph the point again. And then that way, if I know that they set up on, like, I'm going to Table Rock tomorrow.
So you're saying there might be if they're in 10 foot and you've got one that's marked in 15, you're going to pull up on the 15, you're going to cast and they're not there, and you're not even going to look for the one that's in 10. Whereas if you have to re-find it, you know what you're looking for, and you find stuff that you didn't even know was there.
Or you fish the one that's in 15, you didn't graph it, the fish are suspended 6 feet off the bottom, and you need to be throwing a jerk bait, but you drag a jig because you caught him on a jig there the last time you fished it.
Yeah.
And you're not even paying attention. You could do it now with live scope. It's not as big of a deal because you can just live scope it. But similar deal like that. That's how and also are there bait fish even around that area? Or if there's not bait fish, but you see fish, maybe it's a crawfish pattern. And you can get so much info from graphing that just pulling up and fishing stuff, you're missing.
You've done the inattentional blindness stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Read all the, I mean, it's not like complicated at all. It sounds like a big word, but it's, I just pulled it up. It's the failure to notice something that is completely visible. They use it a lot in like criminal cases where there's witnesses and things like that. It's the whole thing that like as we evolved as humans, our minds pick out what is important based on what we deem as important. So if it's not important and not a threat, we literally can't see it.
Yep.
So like if you go into something thinking dark chunk rock 45-degree banks, that's all you're looking for, and like you drive past like docks and clay points and all this stuff, and you literally can't see it because your brain has determined what is important and the rest of this stuff isn't. And that's why so often you'll find out, like when you just really bomb a tournament, that you were really dialed into something in practice and your brain believed that was what was important. And then it's always like your buddy that goes, well, I just flipped a waggy worm next to that dock and caught me 18 pounds. And you're like, drive home going, how did I not even think about doing that?
Yep.
And that's why a lot of the times you have bad practices, you have better tournaments because you're way more open to trying more things, which is what ties into what you just talked about, how you would rather not have any waypoints and go in with all options on the table.
Yeah, and there's obviously certain things I'm looking for. Like I know there's a higher, like with the app and the data, there's higher potential. But if you look at a lot of the data that you come back, if you download the Deep Dive app, you'll see there's like, sometimes there's 7 different types of structure that pull back that's successful with that one bait. And it's not because it's all working that one day, but just a slight change in conditions in the same water temperature with a little bit different cloud cover or wind or something like that. A small change could make all those different areas pop. And so I would like my normal process. Like I'm going to go to Table Rock tomorrow. I have 3 major creeks that I've picked out already. And my plan is I'm going to start in the mouth of the creek on the right side, graph all the way to the back, and then spin back around. I know where I think the fish are probably going to be, but I'm going to turn that part of my brain off for the first 3 hours of the day, my critical thinking brain. And I'm going to let myself just graph. And I talked to
and that's
Rick
different because you have the luxury to do that because you're not doing it under a time crunch. You don't have to go to where you think they are and then they're there and then boom, you're done. I see what you're saying. What were you talking to Rick about?
So Rick always talks about basically, I'm going to butcher it because Rick does a better job explaining than I do. But one thing we always talk about is you have your instincts and you have your rational mind that basically tries to make decisions based on logic and reason. And what happens a lot of times is that we want to make sure that we are following our instincts because that's normally what's going to make you the best angler. But we become a slave to this logic and reasoning part of our brain that says the fish should be here based on what I know and what I do. So what you have to try to do is know what the things are that you need to be doing, kind of know the basic information, but put yourself in a state of mind that you can follow your instincts. You don't want to become slave to your rational, reasonable mind. You want to be able to follow your instincts. And for me, the way I do that is I keep everything open and I delete everything and I just graph and I say, I'm going to pay attention to what the lake is telling me, what the conditions are, literally fish the moment. Like I embody fish the moment with my fishing. And then that way, when I go to the lake, I'm normally not catching fish all that often early in the day, but I normally end up landing on them at some point because I'm allowing my instincts to take over as much as possible, as opposed to forcing something that for 3 or 4 hours is not working.
This makes sense. So, what do you hear all the top guys talk about, specifically guys who finished in the top 10, that they made good decisions? Mm-hmm. And a good decision, in my opinion, is a decision that you don't struggle with. You don't even realize you're making those decisions until after you've made it. I've found in my limited level of success that if I'm struggling with making a decision, I'm already kind of screwed.
Yep.
Because now I'm fighting and I never put it this way until you said that, but I'm fighting between my rational mind and my instinct because the only way that you're having a disconnect in your head is if your instincts are saying one thing and your rational mind is saying another, and now you have to figure out which one to listen to.
Yep.
When they're working in harmony with each other, that's when the decisions are easy. That's when you see the guys that will roll into an area, look at it and go, nope, and leave. Or they'll make 5 casts and leave. Or they'll be like, we're here for the day. Because those two things are working in coordination and there's no internal conflict in them. And that's what the conflict is. It's the instinct versus your rational mind. And I've never thought of it that way, but that's what it is. When you're struggling to make decisions on the water, and every single angler does it. I think the top level anglers, the top 2%, the top 1%, those two things work in harmony more than the average guy, and they don't even understand what it's like to just have that internal conflict where you're making a cast and you're trying to figure out what, where, and when to do next because you're not in harmony with those two things. Fair assessment.
Yeah. Fair. And again, I want to give 100% credit to Rick Clunn for that. This is not my theory. But one thing I will say is I think the reason that your Brian Thrifts, your Jacob Wheelers, your Edwin Evers are so dominant is in practice, they eliminate some options that they feel like are going to become they're going to overwhelm their instincts, that they're focused so much on that rational mind because they're like, this is what I should be doing. So I think they eliminate a lot of that stuff. And then also I know, like, for example, with Brian Thrift, he graphs a ton in practice to gain as much information as possible. He knows if the fish are offshore or if what the deal is going on up there so that he has as much information as possible to then follow his instincts. I think that's a big challenge a lot of times, that it's hard to follow your instincts if you don't have complete information or at least good information about what's happening. Your instincts could tell you, I should be doing this, but if you miss a factor like the current is flowing or the wind is blowing in a certain way or something like that, maybe your instincts would make it, you would instinctually make a different decision if you had that piece of information, even if it's subconscious. So my idea is at the beginning, I get as much information as possible by graphing and observing and looking around and seeing the water and all that stuff. And I'm bringing that information in using my rational, reasonable mind to bring the information in. Then once I get all the information I think I need, then I let my instincts take over 100%. And I just go, I just fish. And I'm leaving my instincts open at the beginning. I'm not hampering them in, but I'm still using my data, using my reason and logic to make decisions somewhat. But then when it's time to fish, it's 100% instinct. I'm not thinking about, man, this last April, I caught them doing this or that. Like, I'm like, this is what they're doing right now. This is how I'm going to catch them.
You still have days where you go out there and just don't catch them?
I do. I mean, I do. I would say that I've caught a limit. I counted up. I track all my fishing trips. I started track. I did it for a video. I fished over my last 37 fishing trips. I'm trying to think of off the top of my head. 37 fishing trips. I caught a limit in 29 of those. 5 fish limit in 29 of those trips.
That's strong.
And the only time I didn't catch fish in those tournaments I call them tournaments, my video days. The only days I didn't do that is when I failed to follow my process. I went in there saying, I want to catch fish in a certain bait for a certain video, or I want to do something like I did a video on Grand Lake where I said, I'm going to go throw a spinnerbait up in shallow water. No, actually, I was going to go throw a buzzbait. I wanted to go get what's Jeffrey's favorite pattern on Grand Lake, the buzzbait in December. Jim Morton.
When it's snowing. Buzzbait on the riprap. Jim Morton, yeah.
Yeah, Jim Morton. So I wanted to make that video. And I went out there and I threw a buzzbait for hours, and then I picked up a spinnerbait.
Was it snowing?
It was not snowing, but the water temperatures were cold.
Okay.
It was about to be snowing. So it was cold, and I was trying to throw the buzzbait. I caught like 3 fish that went like 9 pounds in the spinnerbait, and I didn't catch a limit. And it's because I wasn't following my process. I just said, I'm going to pick up a spinnerbait and a buzzbait and just go fishing.
Yeah.
And that's when I don't catch fish, is when I don't follow the process.
Huh.
And it's not like I always fish offshore or always fish shallow. Like a lot of times I did this on a video the other day. Went to Lake Hudson, just south of Grand Lake. I graphed for 3 hours and all I saw was gar and a bunch of nothing. And so I pulled up and I was like, well, there's nothing around. And the only bait fish in this entire creek are right here against this channel swing bank. And there's nice clear water. The main lake is muddy. I have all this information. I pick up a finesse jig and flip it down the bank and catch a 4 on my like 4th cast and catch 14 pounds. And it was because I graphed offshore for 3 hours.
and I determined that the offshore bite was not the deal. And so I was confident with my instinct to go up shallow and catch those fish.
That's good stuff.
So I'm not saying this that I know exactly what I'm doing, because I'm also fishing on lakes I know and stuff like that. So I don't think I would be this consistent. I'm also fishing in the middle of the week, so I want to let people know that this is not like I'll go out there and do this in tournaments. But
you understand that there's it's two different animals, two completely different animals. It's like indoor soccer versus outdoor soccer. I can't believe I just used a soccer comparison. It's like roller hockey versus ice hockey. There, how's that?
Exactly. Yeah, like I'm not fishing with other guys in the lake. I'm not fishing with all the fishing pressure. I'm fishing on lakes I know. So like the reason I'm able to catch fish consistently is because of those factors.
Yeah, but you would think
my videos though.
Yeah, you would think though that if you were dedicated to it, like if that was your heart's desire, you'd be able to factor in the pressure and the weekend boat traffic and all that. Like those would just be added to your calculations.
Yeah, and it would take me however long it took me to figure out how. I probably would struggle at first. Probably most likely I would expect myself to struggle because I would have to adjust my process and it wouldn't work. And I've trained that. So then it might take me a year. It might take me 6 months. It might however many tournaments to adjust it. But then I feel like I could figure it out eventually.
Mm-hmm. Definitely want to make sure that if our listeners and viewers want to get a hold of you, digest some more of your content over on Fish the Moment. I know we have a lot of we do have some shared viewers, but it also surprises me at sometimes how you could have someone who's really into one thing who's like, what's that? I've never heard of it. Vice versa. So it's just your YouTube channel is Fish the Moment.
Fish the Moment. Yep.
Yep. And you can do the lake breakdowns. You can see all of your videos. You do what, like one every week, basically?
One to two a week. It just depends on how long they take.
You still doing the live streams? You're still doing the live streams, what, on the Fish the Moment live YouTube
Fish
channel?
the Moment live. Yeah, 2 different channels. It's a kind of confusing, but every
It's an
Tuesday
algorithm
night, 7
thing.
p.m. Algorithm thing. It is. Yeah. Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Fish the Moment live. We're doing one tonight. I'll probably talk about some of the same stuff we talked about in the stream. So kind of similar, breaking it down. I just nerd out and talk about like fishing theory and crazy stuff. That's all.
No, that's good. I've really enjoyed this. And then also the deep dive app that you've been working on for the past 3 years. And you'll see that ad on BTL for the remainder of the year. You gave me the code for it. I'm going to go out and give it an honest shot. See what I think of it. I'm an app skeptic, Johnny. I told you this from the very beginning. Did I not?
You did,
but then I said,
all right.
I said, all right, there's some validity to this stuff to where I don't think it's not gimmicky. It's actually, and I hopefully this interview kind of showed that is a data-driven app that also provides, science and, it's actual stuff that you can use. You're not like pushing a specific baits or just saying these are general patterns for the conditions. Everything is results driven, correct? Or things that have been observed.
Yeah, actual observations.
Yes.
And then we take the data and the best we can. And again, nothing is ever going to be perfect. So you might get a weird type of cover or a weird bait every once in a while, but more often than not, that's what I would say.
But you also know that if you're going to spend your $9 a month on it, you're the guy that's behind it. It's not some guy that's just doing all. It's Johnny's stuff, which I like, man, because you're legit, and it's been cool to see you from the days of the world's youngest professional bass fisherman to what you do.
Oh man! Next time we're gonna have to play the video game that I was on, the Bass Tournament Tycoon.
You were in a video game?
Yeah, I got. I don't know.
That'll be a good one to end it on.
Yeah, you can actually look it up. Bass Tournament Tycoon on. You can probably pull it. I'm next to Luke Clausen and Jay Ellis, and then Jonny Schultz.
Those are the three.
I'm giving out all of the stuff that I've never talked about in my YouTube channel before.
The Berkeley Bass Tournament Tycoon.
You find the inside box cover.
Available on Amazon.
you click Amazon and you go in there, you'll see my impressionable young face.
I've never even heard of this. This was big league back in the day, huh?
Oh yeah.
You have got to be kidding me. Look.
There it is.
Luke Clausen, Jay Yellis, and Jonny Schultz. Okay, this is funny as heck. Luke Clausen, 2006 Bassmaster Classic champ. Jay Yellis, 2003 Bassmaster Angler of the Year. Jonny Schultz, 2006 Wisconsin Junior State champ.
Pretty much the same thing.
What was your quote? The game helps kids become better bass anglers and have a ton of fun while they learn. It's really cool. How did that come about?
I was working with Stren at the time, and they took me over to the Berkeley headquarters over there, and I went and looked at all the indoor testing and all, like, they have the tanks where they feed the fish and all that stuff. And while I was there, they're just like, hey, we're doing a video game and it's for kids. Do you want to be on the cover? And I was like,
sure,
I guess. And I mean, obviously couldn't get paid because I feel like now this is child labor. Now I'm thinking about it, or like exploiting my image. I didn't get any proceeds from that. But,
so you were in the game, actually in the game.
No, this was pre graphics that could do actual faces. No, I was just on the cover.
You're just giving your testimony about how much fun.
Yeah, testimonial
with Jay Yellis and Luke Clausen.
Oh man. Yeah, it's been kind of a wild ride. It's cool though that to see what you're doing here at Bass Talk Live. And I remember you stayed at my house, I think, one year, right, for that college, or maybe it was just Chip.
That was Chip.
But, but just seeing how we're able to make livings doing fishing. I think it's so cool to see guys making a living in fishing. It's not tournament. 'Cause I never thought about it when I was growing up that it was even possible to make a living fishing, unless you were like the host of the Bassmasters or a tournament pro. That's all. Or you had to work for one of the companies. That's it. Now there's so many other career paths that it's really cool.
It is cool. I don't even know. I don't even think I have the right. No, wrong song queued up, but that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. It sounds good, man.
Dude, I appreciate it, Johnny. Stay busy. It sounds like you have a lot of stuff on your plate. Check out the Deep Dive app. Stay in touch at Fish the Moment on YouTube. Check out all of his stuff. And will you come back on BTL a couple times throughout the year?
Oh yeah, for sure. If we get some cool stuff for the app, I'll definitely want to share it.
All right, that'll work. This has been Bass Talk Live. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.